Hello, and welcome to Data Planet, the show where we talk with industry leaders about the triumphs and challenges of growing a business and the role data plays along the way. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Jaclyn Howell McDougall, a digital marketing growth consultant, ex Google expert in agency operations. Welcome to the show, Jaclyn.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you today.
Yes, on our very first episode. Thank you for being
Yay.
willing to be our guinea pig. Um,
Very willing.
So, lots of people like to talk about their data driven marketing approach, but I'm curious to hear from you, from your experience, and all the different perspectives you've had on marketers talking about their data driven approaches.
Mhm.
What differentiates an impactful data application strategy from a bunch of buzzwords and pie charts and just noise?
Yep. And that is a fair question. And so I have experience brand side, publisher side, and agency side. And what all of those different lenses has taught me is a few things. And starting out always with what your North Star and your goal is, and then how we are building a marketing mix to achieve those goals. And as you go through and you pick your different channels or you pick your different publishing partners, you want to understand how the measurement capabilities they have align with not only your goals, but your reporting system and capabilities. So that's kind of always the place to start is the main goal and the infrastructure. The way that you can differentiate how to make a sound measurement plan versus, seeing a presentation with a lot of great buzzwords and chart mock-ups that you're going to get later is really ensuring that everybody that has a piece of the pie truly understands your business through and through. If you're a lead generation company, have they gone through every single step of the workflow on your website with your team? Have they interviewed leadership, the sales department, all of that? And then marry that up to the financial data and then really mapped out a sound lead to sale journey. If you haven't started with a thorough, proper discovery, that's how you likely end up with all of those really pretty charts that might not actually be the right data or the right story.
Nice. So to summarize, the it sounds like the most important thing is not taking a one size fits all approach, that it
Correct.
it has to be what works for you, for your business, and really be tied to what matters for you and your business and what you have to work with. So it's not about plugging in someone else's perfect solution to what you're trying to do, but figuring out how do I build this for my business?
Exactly. And always
Yeah.
asking the question about the capabilities before you sign an IO or before you get going, just so you are fully making a informed decision.
Yeah, it's a real bummer to find that out after the fact.
Absolutely. And sometimes when you're in a crunch, it happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes, they found some dollars and you have a month to spend it and go shopping around and there's really exciting things out there that are new.
Uh-huh.
But if you are profit driven, we have to make sure that the capabilities are there.
Yeah. Nice. All right. And when I asked you what you were excited to talk about on this show, you brought up a really interesting concept, and that is estimation and proxies in data analysis versus
Mhm.
perfection and, sort of getting into analysis paralysis. So
Yeah.
let me start by asking, what are the risks of aiming for perfection in your analysis?
Yeah. I would say there's a few. First being you risk not getting started. You risk not getting in the water and testing whether it's a new media channel, a new type of creative, different AI functionality, no matter what it is.
Uh-huh.
If you're too focused on absolute perfection and zero risk, then you're going to miss out on
Uh-huh.
what is new and what is emerging. A
Uh-huh.
lot of times, publishers like Google, Meta, different companies are going to have betas and alphas where they're testing things, and they are going to be open with you that they are testing, debugging, improving, and you can
Uh-huh.
be a part of that feedback, or you can wait and be a laggard in the testing process.
Uh-huh.
Not taking risks and not moving forward and being innovative is a huge risk. The second risk, I think, is that paralysis stage. And so whether you sit in-house at a brand, at an agency, you want to make the right decision for the business. You want to ensure that you have gotten your models or your proxies or estimates about 80 to 90% perfect,
Mm,
sure. But if you push for that extra 10% or there's extra layers of, manager and VP approvals of what that proxy is,
mhm,
then you really risk being stuck in that paralyzed state.
mhm.
And sometimes then you end up, and this has happened to me in the in the retail space, e-commerce in particular. Sometimes you zoom out and you receive this spreadsheet back, and that number is totally existing in a vacuum and not real about what your customers are doing on your website. And
Mm.
so to avoid those kind of detached moments, I think avoiding that paralysis is best.
Sure. So I'm viewing it as sort of this range from, um, are you just using the average value of everything mixed together, or are you overfitting the data to the model, or the model to the data to the model, so
Yep.
that then you get a model that's giving you false information? And so
Right.
trying to find that sweet spot where, this is good enough to move forward and gives us better information than the
Exactly.
nothing we were starting with, or assuming every customer or every deal is the same value. It's one step better than that, right? Or
Exactly.
ideally a few steps. Yeah.
Yeah. And another way to look at it is in general, it's hard to be everything to everyone. So even if, say, you have 2 to 3 main audience personas or, uh, really valuable customer sets that you want to touch with marketing, maybe you zone in on 1 or 2. Um,
Mhm.
this way you can kind of focus efforts on the core of what's gonna drive the most value for the company,
Yeah.
and then you spend hours, days, weeks on evaluating those other pieces. So having a really targeted approach.
Yeah. And so what are some of those applications where people should be on the lookout for? I'm overanalyzing this. I should be using, an educated dart throw, or I should be using proxies in this prediction or in this model. For people who are trying to understand, like, oh my gosh, I do a ton of analysis. Where should I be doing this? What are some of those applications where you've seen that be really important?
Yeah, I think for on the lead generation side, it happens a lot when there are either so many product offerings that a lead can go to, or the lead flow steps are super long. And so there could be something happening in maybe your website or landing page experience that's causing data to, a customer to drop off at a certain point versus the offering. So I think sometimes if the customer's funnel is too complex,
Mhm.
that sometimes gets you to a point where you're kind of throwing darts and there's too much to look at. So in
Uh-huh.
those cases, what I love to do, and I still continually do this, I like to step away from my computer and my spreadsheets
Uh-huh.
with the stakeholders, as few stakeholders as possible, 3 to 4 if possible, and whiteboard and say, what do we know about
Mm.
this customer? Or what do we know about someone coming in via this channel? They
Mhm.
tend to go to this product offering. They tend to stay for 1 to 2 years. What are the big things that we know?
Mhm.
And then kind of start from there and map everything out with a little more detail.
Mhm.
But I find that stepping away from tons of columns and rows and just talking and writing on
Mhm.
the whiteboard, it like ignites a different part of your brain,
Mhm.
and it's almost like simplifies the thought process.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think another exercise I love doing with clients or prospects is throwing some numbers out there
Yeah,
and looking for a reaction. So a lot
right.
of times people are terrified to give you an estimate and say, well,
Yeah.
what's your average margin on these types of products? And they're,
Yes,
oh gosh, I couldn't possibly. And like, well, is
you're
it
right.
5% or 50%? And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, well, I can tell you it's definite. And that,
Yes.
just sort of closing in on, okay, well, something that's better than, again,
Mhm.
making something up out of thin air or assuming a totally average value for something.
Right. No, that's a
Yeah.
great example, and, when I was working at Google, there were different bidding policies. And if we had that situation, because a lot of times, those small to mid-sized companies that are in big growth phases, they don't really like to pigeonhole themselves into a number like that.
Mhm.
And they also sometimes don't want to share their financial information with publishers, partners, etc. So what we found as a workaround there, which is another approach you could take, is a ranking system. So if you're measuring 5 different conversion pieces in the publisher or in, whatever marketing platform you're working in, which one do you want the bidding algorithm or the AI to focus on most? And then let's
Mhm.
set parameters around that and then the
Mhm.
rest will be gravy. So you have, specific campaign or accounts that are focused on revenue as number one, or are
Mhm.
focused on a lead, a soft lead form, so we can retarget later, things like that.
Yeah, yeah, nice. I think my other favorite one is if you're doing some sort of lead scoring or predictive lead values for, whether that's to inform your own business decisions or optimize campaigns, uh, just identifying the things that are obvious spam and
Mhm.
excluding those.
Yes,
It's like
that's huge.
it feels like it needs to be this, this big complicated predictive model, but a
Mhm.
lot of times you can just look at the data. Oh, well, clearly these ones are spam. And like, all right, well, just
Mhm.
removing those is such a
Correct.
huge deal in terms of improving our understanding of what we're actually driving or what we should be focusing on.
Yeah.
So,
That actually brings up, a good point, kinda circling back to the start of our chat. It's also very important for marketers to understand the attribution windows of the different platforms that they're running marketing with, because
okay.
to your point, not all traffic is created equal, not all leads are created equal. There are spam, there could be, repeat customers, and maybe your focus is net new customers. And so ensuring that you know what that window looks like. One social media platform could count a lead or a conversion as a complete view for 1 second of the video playing.
Hmm.
Other platforms have to play 50%, others have it the full way, and so I think that is another way. Just having that knowledge is gonna help prevent you from either making or receiving reports that are potentially just kinda buzzwords and not the full story.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, since you opened the attribution can of worms,
I did.
any any other attribution model considerations that you wanna throw out there?
Yeah, I think the attribution set conversation is unique to every customer because it depends on where they are in their digital marketing journey.
Mhm,
Are they new to dabbling in, search, display, social, YouTube? Are they middle of the pack? Are they super innovative and emerging? Because that is probably going to dictate what their comfort level is with
mhm.
testing some of the more data-driven, shared modeling attribution.
Yeah,
If you spoke to me 10 years ago, almost all clients were on a last click attribution model, and we
mhm.
would try to make some assumptions with some impression trackers and different things to tell the bigger full story of the whole funnel.
Yeah,
But obviously, over the last 10 years, that has changed dramatically. And now with AI led campaigns, it's turned on its head again.
yeah,
So I do think that meet yourself or your client where you are, but try to push to testing.
yeah,
Testing the latest data-driven models, applying credit across the stage, and that's kinda why I started out with that lead to sale mapping, or that customer journey funnel, because that will help you know what to pick. If
yeah.
if you're an e-commerce person and if someone you have a really, like, trendy gift type item, and if
Mhm,
someone comes to your website, they have full intention, they're gonna check out because it's really
mhm.
novelty, it's really interesting, then you can, adjust your attribution one way and remarket or run exclusions, whatever you need to do based on knowing that about your business. If you are an applicant tracking software company, which we know has a longer consideration set, a bigger investment, you're going to want to test that data driven model and assign different credit throughout so that
Mhm.
you're not only covering the goals you need to meet today, you're generating and nurturing demand for your goals next week, next month, next quarter.
So what I'm hearing is it's similar to what we first talked about with data-driven marketing and, what should you be looking at? It's like there isn't one right answer. It depends what
Yep,
you're trying to achieve. And so
exactly.
I I think one of the mistakes people can sometimes make is assume this is our one attribution model and this is
Mhm.
what we're using for everything. And
Yeah.
in reality, you might want one attribution model and predictive model, for that matter, to
Mhm.
understand what's my expectation around performance, and another one to train, the bidding or targeting algorithm on
Yes.
the back end of an ad network. So it's not even one size fits all for a single company. There may be
Correct.
multiple models they wanna consider depending on what they're trying to do with different campaigns or,
Yeah.
parts of the business.
Yeah, and that's why I'm a big believer, and I do a very thorough discovery because sometimes they come to the table with a KPI for a certain platform or a certain type of media, and I employ the 5 why model. Well, why is
Nice.
that? What does that not
Mhm.
ladder up to? Okay, we want to grow, the number of service lines per customer by X percent. Why is that? Well, because our revenue is down and we think that's the better way to do it. And you just keep kind of getting to that truth underneath all of it,
Mhm.
and then you can kind of map out your plan from there.
Nice. All right. Well, last question. Speaking
Yeah,
about planning, I think as a, data-driven marketer, it's really easy for me to get hung up on managing risk and just wanting to
sure.
stick with what I know is working and sort of
Mhm,
having this is the core of my program. Let's just keep doubling down on that. But there are obviously drawbacks to that, like,
mhm,
not being able to grow the business as effectively
sure,
and in a lot of ways being in digital marketing and not growing, you are effectively losing ground for all the time you spend not testing. So can you
mhm,
talk a little bit about how to approach balancing that, tending to the core elements of your program
yeah,
with testing and exploration?
yeah, absolutely. I am a big fan of keeping budget and effort to exploring before you exploit too much of what works. So, for example, say a retailer has one specific type of sale. It has a specific name, it has a specific marketing campaign. They've been doing it for 20 years. And after a while, there's all different factors. Their sales are slow in store, their sales are slow online, and they have to examine, do we take the risk and completely revamp this story that we've been telling for a long time as a legacy brand in our industry?
Mhm.
Or do we just keep trying to exploit what has seen work and bring dollars in the past? And I've just seen through so many industries, through so many client stories, that you want to keep, like an 80-20 mindset, 70-80% of your efforts on the core that you know is going to drive your business and make sure
Mhm.
you stay above water and you're doing well. But keeping that 20% really flexible between what is, tolerable and seemingly safe testing
Mhm.
and what is true emerging, different technologies, different platforms, whether you split it into 10 and 10, however, works for you. I just think having a flexible mindset is important. And also listening to your customer, what they're telling you, and listening to the industry. On a really small scale, my dad had a supermarket for 45 years. And at one point, he started doing some prepared foods just to help reduce the waste of any inventory.
Mhm.
And then he was realizing people were coming in specifically for that, and it was more profitable than any other department. And so after a while, he flipped the script, and the store really became a center for prepared food and catering. And that was more than half of the revenue and like 80,
Wow.
90% of the profit.
Wow.
And, he's always been telling me different things. And that's one of the thing is, you can make this beautiful plan, this beautiful PowerPoint that makes perfect sense. It's rooted in competitive data, different analyses, but what is the customer actually telling you?
Nice. Oh, what a great story.
Mhm.
All
And the
right.
food was good, so I'm still eating it now.
Most importantly, the food was really good,
It
so
was really good.
awesome. All right. Well, let's call that the final data point for this episode.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Jaclyn. If people want to learn more about Jaclyn, information will be in the show notes. Otherwise, thank you for joining us on
Yeah.
Data Planet.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here, and this is incredible. I love
Y
everything you're working on.
Oh, thank you so much. All
Yeah.
right. Well, thanks and see you next time on
Yes.
Data Planet.
Thank you.